Right. I think we are. I think after maybe 2 months almost, at least 1.5 months. So we don't have. We didn't have the class, and so we just resumed our class, the Foundation of Buddhism, written by the Rupert Gethin, actually still who is a professor in the University of Bristol. That's where I usually did my research there. And now we're back to this the book. The Foundation of Buddhism on chapter 6 about no self, which is one of the certainly is one of the unique religious view. I would say one of the unique view from Buddhism, especially if you study other religions. That's really one of the things that other religions or other religions are really very difficult to understand, and maybe not necessarily they would agree upon with. But then also that is actually certainly is one of the very important topic that which carry out the whole missionary in Buddhism especially. I also believe that in Buddhism, understanding that without understanding the no self, then there's no way that you will gain enlightenment. So certainly that has become one of the very important notions that we have to study. And I think this book at least have succinctly introduced or give a very good guideline for everyone how to approach or what is the best approach to understand the no self. We supposed to be start from page 145, but I would just simply say something in the beginning. The no self, first, certainly, and also if you look at the background, the Buddhism started, you could say, in those they call the Dhammadipa, and that including India and Bangladesh or Pakistan and part of Afghanistan in those days. So, and that's why we don't like to say India, because usually when you say India, now you look at now geographical kind of understanding mean restrict to nowadays. India actually might be, you could understand during the Buddha's time, so the understanding, they call that as the middle land actually. So that include those countries just mentioned. And in general, the religion in India or in Dhammadipa in those days, they still believe in their soul. And without the concept of soul, just like nowadays Christianity and other religion, then it's very hard for them to grasp what is the significance of being a person or religious persons. So, but on the contrary, I mean, perhaps you could say that's one of the very important or very significant or crucial things for the Buddha to discover, or you could say rediscover, that actually there's no self, there's no soul. And so as we always say, even nowadays, how do you really decide or whether a person is a Buddhist or say the religion is a Buddhist religion? There are so many schools nowadays, and then whether it's a Buddhist or not Buddhist. And one of the really important topic is about the no self. If any Buddhist say that we believe in soul, believe in the self or permanent self, then for sure there's not a Buddhist. Even in old days, let's say during might be before Christ, after the Buddha passed away a few hundred years, and then we have different kind of Buddhist school. And one of the school called the Buddhalavada, Buddha Chelo. So, for example, that is the word Buddha. The word Buddha basically means a person. Even that it's called a school of a person, you can understand that. So surprisingly, even Xuanzang, when he went to India, because Xuanzang, everybody know he's a Chinese, and when he was in China, of course, he studied Buddhism. He thought this school exists in India in those days, and they would thought maybe not many people, not many followers. Actually, on the contrary, majority of followers are the Buddhalavada in India. And this is the funny part. Why? Because Buddha is believing that actually beyond these five aggregates, there is the self. But when you argue with that, so that when you say the self, do you mean the permanent self? And they deny, they say, no, we don't believe in permanent self. But they only believe that in between the five aggregates, there must be a self. And they started to quote a certain passage from a Buddhist text saying that the Buddha hinted that there is no permanent self, but still there is something called a Buddha, or mean a person. So in between the five aggregates. And certainly this is one of the really vehemently criticized by many other schools. But however, still, these schools belong to Buddhism. Why? Because they still hold that there is no such a permanent self. Even though their theory is somehow, you could suspect that they are talking about the soul, but in a very different way. This actually, that was my master research, you know, on this topic, but I'm not going to talk this now. I just want to say it's very clear if any Buddhism telling you that we are Buddhist or we are Buddhism or we are the Buddhist organization, but we believe in soul, that's for sure this is not Buddhist, because in Buddhism, and you know, there's no such a thing that in believing the soul. Okay, but that's very clear. Although I know nowadays, if you meet a lot of Buddhist people, they still don't know. Is it really Buddhism do not believe in soul? They were very surprised by that. Then they always ask the question, though, how could you explain the reincarnation? Because the reincarnation has to be taken place because of the existence of the soul, right? Anyway, so I'm not going to answer this question. I'm sure if you go on the reading of this, that you will come up to maybe a better approach. I would say, I would not say, I don't mean that you definitely will totally grasp the understanding, the main teachings of that, the no soul, but at least you will, have a better approach on that. Now, so we must understand in the background that in India, actually, there was believing the soul, right? The Brahma as the big soul, and then because of the Brahma as the creator, and then he created everything in the universe, like as the created beings, and all the beings, of course, consist of the soul. When the beings die, so if they are purified with their soul, or if they can purify their soul, then they can unite with the big Brahma. So this is what one of the general concepts in Indian religion. And with that concept also, they also do meditation. That's the reason why they have this meditation, the original word yoga, actually, to Indian concept, it means connected to the God. Okay, the word, because the yoga, the word from the root yuk. Okay. So because it's from the root yuk, so like the yuk is like in English yoke. Okay. The cow, they have this kind of yoke, just like place it on the neck of the cow, of the two cows. That's how make the two cows can walk, so that they can pull the cart. So right. So, and actually the original word of yoga is from the Sanskrit word yuk, mean connected, or something like a yoke. Okay. So, but connected to what? Is connected to the God. So that's actually the original, I shouldn't say original, I mean, maybe perhaps when you learn the Sanskrit, that might be the original meaning of the word, mean yoga, mean connecting your soul to the God, right? Or that you call the big soul as the Brahma. I think last time, if I gave a lot of notes about how Indian religions talk about, the beginning of the universe and how to think about this, the soul is about, I think if you're interested, you can go back and read it again. If you don't have the notes, please write to Ellen, maybe we can send you the PDF file later, okay? So those are just Indian sources about how they believe in the soul from an Indian text. And if you really look at this kind of Indian text, like from Upanishad, from Vedas, and those things, because especially Chinese, they're not very familiar with that. Not only Chinese, I would say mostly of the people. They might know the Bible, but actually they didn't know the description of the creation. Actually, in Indian, have a really rich description about that, and they have so many I would say, much more philosophical, much more deep, what to call, record, or maybe you could say statements, or, you know, what to call, forgot the term. Anyway, something relating to that creation. So, yeah. Now, just let me finish that. So this is just, we want to review what we have done. So basically then, we know that then the Buddha is from the first sutta, Kevata Sutta also, the Buddha actually, you could see from many suttas, like one of the suttas, like Kevata, is clearly so refute that the idea of believing there's a permanent soul. And if you have read, and then we have done that part, and then you could see it's almost like then you have evidence from a Buddhist text. It's always the Buddha actually disagree with the concept of believing there's a permanent, or the notion of the soul, okay, or the self. The word is soul and the self. Let me just give you a word also you need to remember. Sometimes people don't really use the soul because, of course, this is a translation, but if you look at the Sanskrit word, it's always called Atma, okay? But in Pali, it's Atta, okay? That's a Pali, and there's a Sanskrit, Atma and Atta, okay? The word Atma, you could translate as a soul, but depends on the context. You can translate as I, you know, I. Or you can translate as, or Atma also, in some contexts you can translate as mean the God, the ultimate, the creator God, or Atta Brahma. So, but sometimes if you want to differentiate between the word Atma and the word, and the personal self or the big self, then you just put the word Mahatma, you know. Maha means big soul, okay? So in a normal in context, when you say Atma means a person, soul, or person kind of entity, or person kind of say substance in a person. But Mahatma always, Maha means big, right? Like mean the big soul, always refer to the God, yeah? The universal, the word universal soul, okay? Or you could say the universal self, okay? But that's a Pali word, Atta, okay? But as I say, in certain contexts with Atma or Atta, the word sometimes mean I, okay? So also I, a person, and I, yeah. Okay. And another thing is, I think we have done that also. So there was the theory that how one of the understanding in what way the Buddha disagree with the idea of soul. But according to the, what is his English name? Stephen Colling, right? Stephen Colling. So, and he put it out that there were three positions. One is that if there's a soul, you should be able to control it, you know. You should be able, if there's a so-called something called permanent I. So for example, nobody want to be ill. So, and then if there's something called the permanent I is there, then you should be able to control that you will not be ill, you know. So that's the one thing. And the second is that because if we agree that things are changing all the time, so that also leads us to understand there's a suffering. Well, here the word suffering, as I always emphasize, even we translate as suffering, the original word means dukkha. That's also one of the terms you need to learn. You don't, you know, you have to leave and translate, like in Chinese, 涅槃. Usually you don't translate it, because if you translate it, you can mislead it sometimes, you know, and at least you leave the term there, so have a lot of speculation. You can understand that might be something that in your own language cannot describe it. The same thing of dukkha also means suffering, or some people translate as suffering or unsatisfactory. I think unsatisfactory may be a little closer than suffering, but still the word dukkha in Sanskrit and Pali dukkha, D-U-K-K-H-A. In Sanskrit, D-U-H, there's a dot below, okay, sorry, okay. In Chinese, we always say ku, okay. And but maybe best to understand the word dukkha. I mean, if it impermanence mean you are kind of like you couldn't help, kind of like maybe they carry the meaning of my you cannot do anything. kind of like it's sometimes, that's why sometimes the word dukkha been defined as like oppression. You've been pressed to the corner. So just like, somebody push you to the corner, and you want to turn left, you cannot turn. You want to turn right, you cannot turn. But you just have to face to the person. Say that if a person put you on the corner, you cannot run away. So that's meant by the original word dukkha. But unfortunately, a lot of people take that dukkha always just mean like suffering, mean kind of like anguish or pain, or kind of unhappy sensation. But of course, dukkha always carry with the meaning of against the word sukha, mean really always pleasant, But the reality of the dukkha, it just means that you cannot do anything. But that's the situation that you have. How to say the word? I like to maybe say like oppression. That's why some people like to translate oppression also. I think oppression is a little too strong. Kind of like, you have that kind of situation, you cannot change it. So, cannot change. You have a situation that you have no way to do anything, but just only to know it, like that. Can call the dukkha. So, in other words, firstly, if there's a soul, then you should be able to control it. For example, I can do whatever I like to I can, but unfortunately, it looks like you are facing the thing not like this. So you have no way to control, like your illness, your physical condition, your mental condition also. So maybe you think, no, I can't because I'm doing meditation. So then I can change my condition, change my condition. In a way, yes, but in a way, no. Because can you retain your meditation state all the time? Basically, can you retain your meditation like 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 1 year? So you say, yeah, I can. There are people trying. They say, I want to have this kind of meditation state for 1 year, but how about after 1 year? But they say, no, then I can do it for 10 years. But how about after 10 years? You say, no, I can do it for 50 years. So how about 50 years, right? Still, even in the long scale, you could see you cannot change the situation. The situation always gives you one understanding is things are changing. So if things are changing, so there's suffering. So that's the second perspective you understand. That's what we call the dukkha. If that is the the other thing is that whatever you experienced, so it looked like something that you experienced in the past, the things are changing, but you still experience something going on. But whatever you experienced, if you look back, it's almost as if like the old experience are not necessarily all permanent in states. They kind of begin just like passing water. There's like a famous philosopher say, you can never step to the same water. When you step your foot on the water, you can never have to step on the foot on the same water. The constant, the very same water. This is maybe just the first thing to begin to understand. In Buddhism, are very rationalistic, you could say, that to understand there is no such a thing called the soul and the self. And then, anyway, we have discussed further later. So, and the other I think we have gone through is also, but what you can only understand that there are 5, in Buddhist understanding that there are, as a person, we have 5 aggregates, right? What are the 5 aggregates, remember? Anyone? Yeah, but we try to say that in English. The 5 aggregates.
Feelings, recognition, consciousness.
No. That's just reciting. I want to know what are these.
Okay.
Because when we say as I say, when you use the word soul or person, you always use the term or I as a person is Atma. So, but in Buddhism, when you say that's a person, so the person, Buddhism, that's certainly that's for the meditation skill, but but that now in theory, so in theory that we say a person, we don't say there's an I, there's a 5 aggregates. No, what are these 5 aggregates? One is a material side and one is a mental side, right? You have to understand there are 2 parts first. The material side is as the flesh, you know, the organs or anything material. For example, your flesh, your organs, and all these are material sides. What is the composers? What is the material side comprises of?
4 elements.
Yeah, the 4 elements, right? So that's a material side. And what is the mental side of it?
Feeling, recognition, thought, consciousness.
No.
Recognition.
Feelings is one, right? You just mentioned. And recognition, usually we say cognition, recognition. We don't say recognition because it's a little bit. Okay. And then the next one?
Thoughts, like after you made a contact.
We don't say thought also usually.
Pondering.
Some people like to translate like he just mentioned the intentional. So, but if you want to translate as an intention, you have to say intentional thought, or maybe because intentional is not enough to. It's not enough to define the term samskara, but it has to be intentional thought or intentional. But or you could translate the intentional formation. Okay. Why we have to translate formation? I think you get confused. You have to be really clear about this kind of term. Otherwise, it's very confusing. First one is the form. You could say materials, it's okay. Feelings. And then we say cognition. I think it's okay. Sometimes depending on which one you use. And the other one is that you could say relation. No. If it's relation, you have to say relational formation. Consciousness. Okay. In Chinese, this is called 五蕴. Okay. It's called 5 aggregates in English. Hey. Panchaskandha, okay. So when you say a person in Buddhism, so you always refer to the 5 aggregates, mean there's a material side and there is the mental side, right? This is a material side and this is a mental side. Mental, that's the material. I don't need to write the term. What's this right? Materials. And this one usually in Chinese is called 色, and this is a 名. Okay, 名色. So in the mental side, so it composes, or you could say the mental side, it refers to the feelings, the thought. Cognition means you recognize something. Say that you recognize the shape, the color. Or maybe even you recognize a person. Or you recognize this is a cat and that is a person, and this is a cat, that's a dog, you know. And the relational formation. So let me just say the consciousness. Consciousness means that very conscious, that very recognition, that very conscious now. You sometimes can understand as like you know something, the very beginning. But you can also understand the component of understanding a certain thing or the status. you know. And what is a volitional formation? So it has to go to maybe two things. One is a volitional, mean you're intentional. You're intentional. Why is it called formation, samskara? Because in Buddhist understanding, every thought is being formed by you. It's like people making a clay. You know, like if we have this glass, the glass, it's not glass, this clay. Is it called clay? Yeah, this one is called clay, right? Porcelain. This porcelain is made out of a certain kind of soil, right? So, and this is a formation. So intentionally, the things are made. So for example, somebody slapped me, for example. You have the physical thing that you've been slapped, that you can hear the sound, bang. You have the feeling. And then you understand that's a slapping. Or maybe you could misunderstood. You thought that it's just the water splashed on your face. But actually somebody using a hand just slapped you, right? And this is what you cognize, that slap, just there. And then your consciousness, if your consciousness is not on your face, you will never know there's something called being slapped. If your consciousness at the time is on your, say, on your toes, because your toes were bitten by a snake, for example. At the same time, you have two things goes together. One is the bitten by the snake, and another thing is slap on your face. But however, you didn't notice the bitten part, but you only notice the part that you've been slapped. Then you have this. That cognizing is, your conscience actually is on that face, not on your toes, right? So, say that the slapping or the still keeping on, like that, right? So even your toe will be bitten by the snake, you were not aware, because your mind, intentional formation, is all in that the face part, on the part of the face. Get it now? It has to do with the intentional, and this is how the mind running. And in other words, you could say that it's been made. You know. Get it now? No. Okay, it's fine. So, just what it's not. I mean, this actually is a very basic. I know, but let me tell you, even though it's very basic, a lot of people still didn't get it. But you have to understand it very well, because otherwise, why when you study Buddhism, the five great gates is a very, very again and 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 talking all the time. Okay. All right. Now here I just want to say, but if you really understand these five aggregates, the way, so you started to understand the whole process of or the whole thing, how that goes within the person, then this is also will lead you really understand what is meant by the no self. Okay, it's a very simple way to look at it: where you are, who you are, which represent you, which. But of course, easily you could say the consciousness. That may be arguable a little bit. Otherwise, it's very hard to say what represents you: the feeling, the material, or the cognizing, or your volition formation, and the consciousness. But this, when you say non-able, it's okay, but still something arguable. Anyway, I'm not going to draw that part at the moment. Now, this is how, at least in general, you must learn something general first. That's how the Buddhism presented to the people to say, look at these five aggregates as you are composed of these five aggregates. So which one is the soul? So there's no such a soul because everything is changing. Okay. All right.
Can we break down the 12 links into that as well?
We haven't come to that point yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Have we? I think we've done that also. Yeah, on the page 140, and I think the order here also, and this is just very considerate, way of doing it, because lots of people talking about the self, and they forget when you talk about the concept of no self, a lot of people only just understand through this five aggregate way. But if it to be more precise, even in my argument always saying that they really need to really understand the no self. You need to understand the dependent origination, the concept of dependent origination. And then of course dependent originations. If you look at the list of dependent originations, so in other words, mean you are not just looking at the five aggregates per se, but you are also looking at the other factors to have a bigger scale to consideration. And these so-called the material and the mental part of a person, it's just been, it's just been understood as one of the unit, say. To understand the whole, well, you could put it this way, you understand there's no self, you couldn't find there's a self within your body or within you as a person. But what about beside me? Is there anything that also you could find as a self, right? So, and then if you look at the dependent origination, even within anything that given to you, that you still could find there's no such a self there also. And then, but then still you could find there's a series of I, but there's no such a thing called the entity self that will stay forever, okay? Don't worry, you can have a discussion later. Let's just read a little bit, and then where we are now, 145. I don't know whether we have read that one. Either we did it or we not, but I think we need to read that a little bit. Can we read that 145? Page 145, second paragraph, the understanding that sees a person as subsisting in the causal connector of dependent relation is often presented in Buddhist thought as a middle between the view of eternalist and annihilism. Okay. Do you want to start on the left side or right side?
I'll start.
Yeah, you can start it now. Yeah.
The understanding that sees a person as subsisting in the causal connectedness of dependent arising is often presented in Buddhist thought as the middle between the view of eternalism and annihilationism. If we understand the person as subsisting in an unchanging constant self and underlies different experiences, then since we have postulated something that endures without change, we have fallen prey to the view of eternalism. If, on the other hand, we understand that there is no real connection between the person at one point in time and another point in time, then we have fallen prey to the view of annihilationism. In other words, if we deny that there is a real connectedness between events, that is annihilationism. But if we understand that connectedness in terms of unchanging self, this is eternalism. The middle way is that there is only the connectedness. There is only dependent arising.
Okay, fine.
Part of the Buddhist critique of the concept of self, involves the claim that language predisposes us towards and indeed confuses us into thinking that an enduring self does in fact exist. Sentences such as, "I'm going to London tomorrow," suggest that there is something constant to which the term I refers, namely myself. Yet in reality, claims Buddhist thought such a self is not to be found. However, this does not mean that the term self, I, and so forth are to be systematically removed from all truly Buddhist discourse. Indeed, such terms are perfectly normal in Buddhist discourse. Developed Buddhist thought articulates that what is involved here in terms of a distinction between conventional samvritti and ultimate paramartha truth. From this perspective, the Buddhist denial of self is not an absolute denial of self as such, but a quite specific denial of self as an enduring substance. As we have seen, for Buddhist thought, terms like self, being, and person are conventional labels for what in reality is a mass of constantly changing, usually connected,
Not usually, yeah.
causally connected physical and mental phenomena. This problem is not with the words in themselves, but with what we understand by the words. We're misled by their conventional usage into thinking that selves, beings, and persons have an ultimate existence in their own right. The Buddha, on the other hand, makes use of such words without holding on to them and being led astray. Thus, when a Buddha or any other awakened being says, I, he or she merely uses the term as a matter of convenience, rather than saying this particular group of 5 aggregates, just as a nuclear physicist will refer to a table rather than a mass of subatomic particles. So it is not true to say that I exist, but that it is only conventionally true. From the ultimate point of view, there are only 5 aggregates of physical and mental phenomena.
All right, okay. Any other question with that or any comment? Oh, everybody understand the no self now?
Why is the belief of something constant, like, I guess you can still be not constant, or there's nothing constant, everything's changing, but there could still be a self. Is that what this is saying, or like?
I think because in the previous there was one passage about, let's say, you could argue in that, when someone when someone went to steal a mango, right? Mm-hmm. And then when he was captured, he said, the person who stole the mango was not me, and because according to Buddhism, there's no self, so the yesterday is gone. Now the present me didn't steal the mango, even though I have the mango with me and ate it, and so forth. So, but that is then that's you could argue that's a point called nihilism. Usually we pronounce it nihilism. There's lots of different pronunciation, but it's uchedavada. I mean, you believe that yesterday what is gone. But if you look at this, the list of the dependent origination, but still, there was a person, the thief, he actually have a process, right, stealing the mango, and then and that person have the responsible of of that act, of his action. So that's why there's a causal law. There's a causal, what we call causal consequences, you would say. So yeah, so there's a causal because he did that, and then he would reap the result. But still, in every moment, there is no what we call the enduring substance. A person called the self, but you can have the connectedness, of a person.
So it's not like we don't exist, but we just are changing.
We don't say we don't exist, because that's why it says that if you say you don't exist, so you are still, it's a nihilism.
Yeah.
So
it's just we're changing. There's just nothing constant. That's what they mean by no self. It's just.
I guess that's one. It's at first I just said that even in the book also mentioned that from quoting from a sutta, and then the Buddha asked, if there was a self, then do you want suffering? You don't want suffering, but then why? Then the suffering persists. Mm-hmm. That show that actually you cannot control that whether there's a suffering or not suffering, but if there's basically that's a way also, by understand there's no way you can control anything, then you understand there's no self, right, in a rational way. But okay, at least you solved that problem. I don't want to put my question. I thought you might have the other question. Any other question? Anything? Any comment?
question, but not about this particular paragraph, but just like in general. I was talking to my yoga teacher, who like he goes to like all these like Indian teachers. And
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, sure.
Like what does enlightenment mean and stuff.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that like in Buddhism, there's the belief of no self, and like you're like beyond the gods and stuff.
Not beyond the God. We didn't say that. And just whatever say, and then.
And he seems to have like the same opinion about that, but like is not a Buddhist. Like he practices different methods of meditation. He does like the TM, transcendental meditation.
I know what is a transcendental, yeah.
So I was just wondering, like...
It's very expensive. You learned that one?
No.
That one you need to pay about $2,000 for the course.
Yeah.
So our meditation is free.
I know. I only learned yoga from him, which is paid by
I think that we should change the plan. We must have $3,000 for the course, so that then you have more students. Okay, just joking. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just wondering, like, I was surprised to find out that, like, someone who's not a Buddhist also believes in the, like, the no self and, like, ceasing reincarnation after you realize, like, after you achieve.
Does she believe in reincarnation?
He believes in reincarnation and the ceasing of reincarnation after you achieve enlightenment, but he's not a Buddhist. Neither are.
Yeah, but she was actually suddenly she's not in Hindu. If she want to tell that she's a Hindu and then she's believing in the what?
Not Hindu. Probably not Hindu.
No. The TM is Hindu.
Oh.
I mean, you know, in the West nowadays, there are so many different people and different ideas. Now, I'm not here to say that you have to say you're Buddhist or a Hindu. This is not my subject. But I'm just saying that accordingly, if she say that she practices Hindu, then that definitely is not a Hindu idea. Okay. But of course, you could say she was influenced by the Buddhist idea, you know. But
I guess I'm wondering, like, Hindu or not Hindu, like.
No, it's very clear that Hindu cannot believe no self.
Okay, not Hindu. Not Hindu.
In that concept,
Yeah, but like, what other like sort of religions are out there that you're aware of that like also talks about the no self and like the ceasing of reincarnation? Because I thought that was unique to Buddhism, and I was surprised to find that someone who's like...
No, as I say, you're talking about a certain person. A certain person might be influenced by certain teachings, right? But I mean, if she's a Hindu, like priest, certainly she would not say that way. Or
he has a lot of like other yoga teachers, so he learned this from like other yoga teachers.
No. We're not going to talk that person.
Okay.
As I say, like now there are a lot of Buddhists. Actually, even he's a Buddhist maybe for many years, maybe even their whole life. But the idea may be like Hindu actually. So, but then I'm not saying that then he cannot claim himself as a Buddhist because he's. But I just want to say in doctrinal way you understand, when you say a Buddhist, that definitely there's no way to believe there's an entity self. But as a Hindu, you have to believe there's an entity self.
Is there another religion not Buddhist, not Hindu?
Maybe nowadays in a new cult, yes, I don't know. But
Jainism?
No. Jainism is a little ambiguous, but still no, because they still believe ultimately you have to purify your soul. So your soul, even though in between you could be so-called a non-dualistic, you could be even believing in soul or not soul, but ultimately that's the soul sublime. So, yeah. No, I mean, don't forget actually the challenge for people who became in America or in the West, the challenge for the Hindu priest is to argue this point to them, because mostly in the West, they not necessarily learn from Hindu per se, they mostly learn from the philosophy of Buddhism, because the Buddhist philosophy in the West is so popular. Okay, but because you are not, if you are a Hindu priest, you will get upset. So difficult to teach these people. I told you there's a soul, but you tell me there's no soul. Because that's in the West, if they are really into philosophy and Buddhism, they really love this subject so much. But on the contrary, the Chinese don't like this subject. The Chinese like the soul concept. Okay. They like the soul concept. For example, the doctor, the Agapa Lu Lai Zhan is very similar to that concept. Yeah, they love that. They want to have a pure soul there. They always say, everybody have a Buddha nature. Such a word is really, they love that concept. Yeah.
So there's
but I don't mean that is mean they believe in soul. They don't. They still don't. As I say, all Buddhist schools would definitely don't believe in soul. But still, that kind of concept is more attractive than the other, kind of more sound like a nihilistic kind of idea than the eternalistic idea. Because when you say there's everybody have the Buddha nature, it sounds like from the very beginning you have the Buddha nature. It's this kind of substance is there. Okay. Anyway, that's another big story. I don't want to do it that now. So that's the reason why the Buddhist philosophy is attract to a lot of people. I mean, especially if you study philosophy, for example, they never have this kind of idea. They find this is really interesting. How you prove that there's no self, and even if a person have no self, and then how you establish your morality. That's what they really, because lots of people understand the no self in a way mean nothing, but actually that's not true. That's why here I wanted to tell you. We didn't say nothing, there's a connectedness there. Just like the person who stole the mango and say, the yesterday me, it was gone, so there's nothing. But that's completely wrong, but there's a connection of a person. You stole it, but you take the consequence, so you have the fruit, and you eat it, and all the consequences still carry you, that you might be still thinking that, stealing is nice, I want to steal again, because there's, something like that. But just still, that person have a continual person there, but just only know such an entity of a person. Okay. All right. Anyway, you get it. You get it now.
So, basically, Buddhism is the only sort of religion with a long tradition that doesn't believe in no self.
Yeah. Find me one. No.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was just.
No, for sure.
Confused. Okay. That's very good.
All right. Now let's go to the other paragraph. They call ignorance, attachment, and will of the self. Okay. I mean, this is a little difficult topic, but I mean, if you like philosophy, you like to think, definitely this is one of the really important topics. Okay. Anyone? Next one. Next paragraph. Yeah.
The Buddhist critique of the notion of a self rests on the claim that we never in fact experience an unchanging self, and that there is therefore no reason to posit an unchanging self underlying experience. In other words, the idea that one exists as a permanent, unchanging self is born of faulty reasoning based on the failure to perceive the world as it actually is. The notion of self is born of delusion, moha, or ignorance, avijja. But there is another strength to the Buddhist critique of the notion of self, which sees it as intimately bound up with craving, tanha, and attachment, upadana.
Upadana. Yeah, next one.
A passage from the early Buddhist scriptures that I referred to earlier concludes by saying that someone who succeeds in neither regarding the self as the same as experience, nor as something that is apart from experience, nor as something which has the attribute of experience is. Thereby, one does not grasp at anything in the world, and through not grasping, he craves no longer, and through not craving, he effects complete nibbana. Thus, for Buddhist thought, to understand the world in terms of self is not only to see it wrongly, but to be led by greed, desire, and attachment. One's sense of self springs not from illusion, but from the desire to identify and claim some parts of the universe as one's possession, and say of them, this is mine, I'm this is myself. To identify with the five aggregates, either collectively or individually, is a kind of conceit. The conceit, I am.
All right, thank you. I guess We can read the next one. Before that, I guess you just bear in mind that even the concept of the self is just not just like a theoretical about. There's no such a thing called self within us, but it's also the self is certainly when we the topic of the self, you can say the addressing of the self has a directness to about at least you have to bear in mind that in Buddhist understanding that. When you believe in the self, it means you certainly carry the notion of wrong idea, okay, the wrong notion, or mean you are in not understanding, mean avidya. So wu min in Chinese, avidya, okay. The word you can see there's ignorance, wu min. And then also, and this how this kind of wu min or the avidya or what we call the ignorance comes along, it certainly have to do with the trishna, mean or upadana. Trishna is the term craving, okay. So 我们叫做爱，贪爱，贪。So it has to do with the tongue and then also the attachment. Upadana means 取，取东西的取 ，okay. So just bear that in mind. And also even not only that. So in other words, mean so anyone. So this how at least that's how the Buddhist system. Thinking, anyone if they still have the idea of believing in the self, in other words, mean to Buddhist concept mean that person still holding, that person still holding certain attachment. 就有任何的取 either 欲取、见取 or any kind of this kind of attachment, or that person actually have the drishti, have this kind of craving. So. Even though you may not totally understand how that works, but that's how to understand this kind of principle first. And as well as then certainly then that person is still in ignorance. So 还是在无明里面 still in ignorance. And not only that, and that person can be even have a kind of the conceit, man, okay. What kind of conceit? The conceit of I am this. You know, this is myself and this is mine. It also consists, okay. And this is a very big topic when you study Buddhist philosophy, or you could say even in Buddhist practice certainly. So it's a very big topic. That is, you have to concede that this is mine. And for example, so you said that the pen is mine. Then that's a conceit of I. Okay, that this is mine, and then this is I am. I am this. The pen is me, all right? That means I am this. And this is myself. That means that's my pen, right? So, and so this is, but that certainly has to relate to the conceit, okay? All right, so I know that this is too much for you. Of course, you don't expect when you finish this class and then you definitely know self, you know. But then, you just have to learn. This is why you learn the teachings. You learn the teachings, at least you are starting to have the good approach to understand what it is about, you know. And it certainly helps your life a lot. So you suffer is because you think that's I, right? Okay, in what way you think that's I, that's my emotion, this is me, and this is my feeling, right?
No, my money.
No, I'm not going to talk that. That's another thing. Okay, let's read the next one. Thank you. Yeah, as a function of both ignorance and greed. Anyone you want to read? If not, can you go around here? Okay, as a function of both ignorance and greed. Yeah.
As a function of both ignorance and greed, the belief in self is something that we construct not only at a conscious and intellectual level, but also
level.
But also at a deep psychological and emotional level.
No, level. Yeah.
They continually crave to be particular kinds of person. Insofar as they are entangled with craving, the notions of self and of personal identity can, from the Buddhist point of view, only lead to suffering for both ourselves and others. The appropriating of some part or parts of the universe as mine, and the opposite to yours, the desire to construct myself or personal identity must lead inevitably to selfish concerns. It drives me to accumulate possessions.
It's all right. She's doing all right, yeah. Both physical. She doesn't have to read like an American, okay?
I don't even read American.
I think you are.
Both physical and psychological that define and reinforce my sense of my own selfhood as student, teacher, banker, lawyer, politician, craftsman, Buddhist monk, and some kind of person as opposite to some other kind of person. And when I feel that what I regard as myself and what I regard as by rights mine is in danger of being taken from me, I become angry, frustrated, fearful. I may even be driven to violence and kill. And yet diseases, old age and dies for
No,
sure,
death. And death.
Death for sure will take from me all that I have regarded as mine. Bodies, feelings, ideals, volitions, mind, indeed. An instant image compares our identify ourselves with any of the five aggregates to trying to grasp and various kinds of grass, reeds, and rushes as we are being swept along in a river with fierce current. They all slip from our grasp or break away from the bank. My continued grasping at self in the face of this fact sets myself over and against others' selves. We all become rivals in the fruitless struggle of trying to find something in the universe which we can grasp and call mine. Selflessness causes problems for all concerned, and the aim of the Buddhism is therefore to realize selflessness, both metaphysically and ethically, or to borrow the title of Stephen Collins' comprehensive study of the teaching of no self. The goal of the Buddhist path is to become a true selfless person.
All right, thank you. Right. I guess we can take a little break now. It's 8 o'clock now, and I don't want you to just keep on reading. And if you can come back 5, then we can begin with 5. Otherwise, we can begin in 10 minutes time. Right? Okay. I'll see you later. Yeah. Thank you.